There we are. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Oh, it is a big show. It is a big show. Trying to predict the future here. Well, we're not really. We're just repashing where these steps have brought us and where we can clearly see it is heading next, which is, well, unnerving a little bit, unless you're prepared, of course. And let me center myself up on the screen here. Oh, my microphone is going the wrong direction. So tonight's show, the world as we know it is, well, it's changed again. Like as much as COVID changed our world or as much as 9/11 changed our world, this absolutely what we're witnessing now is another change. Now, in my opinion, Ransom and I have been talking for years about this, that the economy is going to get reset. And, myself, I'm really diving into how this digital system is going to be, encompassing the world here. There can't be two parallel systems running at the same time. One has to disappear before the other can emerge. So as we look at this, as we go to tonight's show, I was talking to a few people who do crypto lending, and we're like very cleanly that there's going to be some flash crashes that wipe everybody out. That meaning, if you have one Bitcoin, and you took a loan out on it for, let's say, even $40,000 at 40% or $30,000 at 30% of total loan value, somewhere along the line in the next couple of weeks, there's going to be a market mechanism where that'll possibly crash down to 10,000 or even $0 or $5, and then whoosh right back up in a matter of seconds. But that'll auto execute everybody. So everybody will have been toasted. They will no longer own their Bitcoins. It'll be a mass sale of anybody that's in the crypto lending space back into the general market, and who will be waiting there with open arms, BlackRock and all these other companies instantly. And they'll settle on the same time with pre-requested orders, pre-placed orders. This is a way that they're going to pull a lot of crypto out of private hands. And we're coming into the digital system. And I'm not going to try to step on too many toes tonight, but you can clearly see where this has gone. Who's the agitators? Who's pulling us into this? And many plans. Who was it, Ransom? I know you've seen this back when they talked about the 7 countries to invade shortly after 2001, that they were going to invade 7
General
countries.
Wesley Clark.
And that was it. Yes. So the last of the countries was to be Iran, or Iran, as you would say it. And now, I don't know if you saw them joking in the newscasts in Israel as missiles are raining down. Apparently their missile defense system, the Iron Dome, seems to be non-functional at the moment. I saw 19 missiles raining down from Iran, just coming in on a video from earlier this evening, their evening time, a few hours back, because we're ahead here. But I counted 19 direct strikes showing out of this video. So something has malfunctioned tremendously over there, where they're not able to take out any of these Iranian missiles, at least not tonight. And that was what I'd seen before. First several nights, they were able to take out 90% of the missiles. Only a few got in. Subsequently, over those last few nights, only 63 to 65% of the missiles were intercepted through Iron Dome. Then tonight, they were completely overwhelmed, and whatever went wrong went like complete barrage, missile after missile from Iran slamming in across the city there in Tel Aviv. And I was like, whoa, something completely broke down there. So the escalation, and during the day, I was sending images around to people, Ransom and Ryan here, who's helping us tonight. The Nimitz is being sent over there, but that was an aircraft carrier that was going to be decommissioned next year anyway. So you have to think about, is the possibility of a sacrificial aircraft carrier that was going to be decommissioned next year would save us the money of decommissioning it, plus sink it, and give us the rally cry for the next, got to enter the war right now. This is a game changer. We are at the precipice. Everything that we saw before is going to be put in play. We're moving to a new economic system that'll absolutely allow that. Ransom, I'd like to talk to you about limited nuclear exchange on the oil fields to dry up the oil availability, as well as closing the Straits of Hormuz, cutting off China's oil supply. And by nuking the oil fields, that gives us a great excuse to go 100% straight into all these new technologies that we have without a competing system of oil that would run with it. Because if we take out the Middle East oil with limited nuclear strikes on the fields, close down the Strait of Hormuz with a sunken aircraft carrier, then we're moving into a different system almost instantly out of necessity, not being pulled or dragged across beds of glass to get us there. But nearly instantly, that will be a manifested change on energy, economy, and what follows on the coattails of that, food production. Food production. We are going to get dangerously close to a global famine if any of this were to occur. Like, can you imagine trying to interact in a new global stablecoin issuance service slash standard when the energy market's disrupted and we're at $300 a barrel oil and they're moving over to new technologies like electrogravitics and magnetic motors and this thing, and then all of a sudden we're somehow supposed to get planted with machines that used to run on oil, but wait, the fields didn't get harvested this year. Like, what in the heck? Ransom unit, we've seen this coming for a while, so here we are. So take it over, man. I'm just curious on your thoughts. I absolutely believe this is going to make 9/11 and the change of the world since 9/11 look really small. We are into the big league show now. This is it. This is what they've been waiting for, preparing for, planning for. Nothing you're seeing is organic right now. Please believe me. This is all a show of smoke and mirrors. This has been pre-planned, predetermined. And whatever it is, the set out date of why they didn't want to crash the markets this Monday makes me suspect to them to come out and say, we didn't want to disrupt the markets this Monday by having some sort of, all out attack barrage / whatever going on this weekend. So why are they waiting until next weekend or next weekend or next Monday or next Monday? Not this coming Monday, but 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. I'll throw all those balls up in the air, and hopefully as a master juggler, you can catch one and then, keep the thought going.
Well, I was just thinking that, they don't even have to have a nuclear exchange as we were, previously talking about in the Ukraine. All you have to do is disrupt one of these power stations. It's a giant dirty bomb. And the idea that we're going to go bomb either uranium enrichment facilities, an actual nuclear bomb somewhere, or that, you would you would attack one of these power plants and make it go critical is silly in the first place. So there may not be anything like that, because there may be what's equivalent to dirty bombs going off. And actually, with a failing nation right here, because I actually don't expect Iran to last as we know it for more than a couple more weeks. They might kick the can down the road, but if they're serious about it this time, what's going on here? If they're serious about,
Oh, wait. Hey, well, hold on. My bad. Please, I clicked the wrong button. Can somebody get me out of there? Help.
that's all right.
Yeah, go right back there, Ransom.
No,
That
it's
was my bad.
Chernobyl style.
That was an itchy trigger finger. That was an itchy trigger finger right there.
Well, I was going there next
Beware
to
of the
that
itchy
article
trigger
anyway.
fingers.
So that's funny.
Oh, okay, great.
No, we could have a Chernobyl style catastrophe. Russia's warning about it, but it doesn't take any genius to figure that out. And what's to stop this, dying or failing nation right now of putting some of this material, now that they're going to be, having to move it around, it's going to be bombed or dismantled or whatever's going on there, and slap one of those in one of these rockets that are making it through the dome. And then you got, some serious dirty bomb going on. And we're not going to put boots on the ground. I mean, Iran is like Afghanistan times 100 as far as mountainous, cavernous regions. We're not going to have a ground war there. So we're just going to pound it from the sky, even if we do get involved. What's going on here? I don't know. There we go. I guess that is this screen here. Anyway, we're not going to have a ground war. We're just going to pound it if we do join in. And you can see behind me they got these cams set up in specific areas while stuff is landing all over the place out of camera view here. They even have a blackout on media going on in Israel where any reporters or anybody there that's trying to put out content or stories has to check with the Ministry of Truth, so to speak, there in their place before it goes out. But we know that's the same way in Iran. It's not like that they've enjoyed many of the freedoms that we do here when we talk about what we want to talk about over the ocean here. But Iran is literally no threat to us. It's they're too far away unless they're sending people, which they have been, across our southern border, which supposedly has stopped now. Um, the problem is all of these little, I would call them splinter cells from China, Iran, you name it, who's on the list, Russia, Ukraine. I would even put some of our friendly nations that are supposed to be our allies inside of that arena of splinter cells, just sitting all over the place. It's standard procedure, actually, for countries to do this to each other. It's just some countries don't allow that because, try doing that in Japan. They'll know about it in a second. You're not really going to get away with anything there, like trying to group up as foreigners in their country. They'll figure it out in a second and you'll be deported. And, the same goes for Iran. They're pretty, somehow it happened, though. They had Israelis invade. They were in there flying drones around doing assassination plots. We kind of knew last Thursday that this was going to be the news feed for the next week or so. And here we are where we're debating 2 more weeks, like you said, for Trump to decide whether or not he's going to join in or if this is going to increase into a regional war. And I was thinking we should pop up like Google Maps here in a little while and talk about it because Iran borders Afghanistan, and it's not far from China, actually, on the map on China's western border. So you have this little area from the edge of Iran over there, and you have Pakistan and India having issues. The whole region is set like a tinderbox ready to be lit when you start having nations against nations. So what do you think that, you know, uh, Pakistan and India will think about their problems that they're having whenever they see that the whole world is ignoring what's going on over there? I mean, because basically what's going on is people are picking sides, and you can see how China backed out of their support for Iran, and France backed out for their support of Israel. So this whole thing that we talked about a few years ago, where they're going to redraw the map, and you're going to see some new players emerge. And I think one of those areas is Iran. They're going to shatter that into different factions. Is what's going to happen. The leadership there is not very popular except for with kind of the Islamic extremist end of the population. On the other end, you have people that were living their lives out freely in a first world nation in the 70s. And they got put into the 12th century. So I think they're tired of that there. So you're going to have an internal combustion going on in Iran, and Israel knows that. That's why they're taking the opportunity to do it. And I bet money that before 2 weeks is up, the U.S. will help with some strikes there. But I think this is really a big nothing burger. This is look over here while we change the map around. If you notice, we kind of backed off of the whole idea of NATO, um, you know, taking the Ukraine or adopting the Ukraine. We can see that Russia, it's like we predicted, went ahead and taken the territory that they said they were going to take. But you have a real opportunity for the new nuclear age, and I mean this in the most messed up way. Um, Power plants destroyed either by greenies that think they're saving the environment, all the way up to nation states that are trying to, as you can see on TV, trying to bomb each other, both of which are rumored to have nuclear weapons already. And I wouldn't put it really, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Iran, from one of its neighbors, or from all of the help that they got through the Clinton and the Obamas and the Bushes. You got to remember there's been a lot of money going back and forth, and designs of old school weapons and things like that from the 80s on up. So I wouldn't put it past the Iranians to have one of the old style nukes. Whether or not they can efficiently put it on a warhead is something different. But I would imagine that Israel, being on the other side of this kind of coin, probably has a modern MERV style weapon. In other words, they can hit Tehran and flatten it to the ground if they wanted to, which they're not doing. So that tells me that this is going to be another drag your feet, slow, incremental border change. And you're going to see, you remember that $85 billion worth of junk we left in Afghanistan? Well, that's on the eastern border of Iran. And I would predict that you'll see people using that. And the goal here is to set up a new Islamic state from Turkey all the way over to Pakistan, in the Middle East. So that's been the goal for quite some time. They kind of tell us what they're going to do. Israel is going to get a big chunk of land in exchange for allowing this to happen. So you're going to see the greater Israel idea kind of unfold in your eyes. They might keep the names on the maps, but the power and the administration is going to change. And I, you hear all of our politicians clamoring for regime change. I don't care one way or the other, really, except for that we're involved in it, and it's really, no risk to us. But this is part of the game. It's nation building. There isn't an American empire. There is an empire that wants that Mediterranean space so that we could return to Roman style maps of power with Europe and I think they're going to blend Europe and the Middle East right in together as one block. You'll see in 20 years the populations will be changed, people will migrate to new places, and we're going to see a whole new world right within our lifetime. So we're not going to have to wait for this. This is an event. It's just rolling out slow. We kind of told you about that, and that's exactly what's happening. Right? We predicted it. They were going to change the borders. That's what's happening, from Russia all the way down. And then I would even think that you're going to start seeing some drama pop off in the breakaways of Russia. And there's a lot of proxy war going on right now. So we're in full step towards World War III. I just don't think that they're going to play it out as the same drama as they did in World War II. It'll be more of a watch it on TV kind of thing where they're just blowing up infrastructure, new contracts are made, new businesses move in. And you can see there is a plan to move populations around and build new infrastructure where the old world, the old empires were, like the old Babylonian Empire, the old, pick one of those old empires. They all revolve around the Mediterranean and that little piece of soil from Lebanon to Egypt.
which requires more rainfall. And how would they know more rainfall is on the way or going to continue increasing? Because you cannot have a civilization if you cannot grow food. So the reason I would say that is, let me show you the screen here that I got for you. This one is coming from, this is a copy of the new BRICS note distributing. So this here in itself, this BRICS note is something that you're going to see as we move through the next, I guess.
No, what we're looking at is General Mills announces the removal
Yeah,
of
I got to get
synthetic
back onto
dyes.
the share. Okay, let me see this thing here. Damn, I had to restart that split screen thing. So I got the new BRICS note that's out here. Can't get this thing to share. Damn it. I just lost the feed here. Oh well.
Just send me the link. I'll put it up there in the big box.
Well, but what was that Ransom was talking about? Everything's going to be in slow motion grind.
I'm sorry. Slow motion.
So what is the grind going to be? What's that mean for us? Well, it
They're
just
about
means
to hike the prices on
that there's going
everything.
to be more wealth redistributed as we move across
I cannot hear Dubai at all. So kind of what I was talking about is like right here, fewer ships entering the Strait of Hormuz. This is one of those first signs that trade war is going to go off. Supply chains, distribution, all of that stuff, from food to fuel to plastics, everything is about to hike in price, and fewer things are going to be able to be bought. And that's what happens during world wars. I mean, that's kind of par for the course there. Are you there, Dubai? I, I, you're frozen on my screen. Totally frozen. All right. So I'm not trying to hog the time. But he did have this article up here. General Mills announces removal of synthetic food dyes, starting with cereals. Did you notice all of a sudden in the mainstream, they're really concerned about our health now, and they all of a sudden want to take out all of the supposed bad things that we've been eating all of this time? Do you think they really care about your health, or is it that these things have already done their damage? They've already been eaten by the populace. Millions, hundreds of millions of children have already eaten all of this stuff. So to all of a sudden start acting like they're going to worry about food dyes and things like that, while the complete plethora of food there is genetically modified from the get-go. You're not even eating real food, and then we can talk about the fact that that food is actually like cow food. I mean, it's not really human food. We're in my opinion shouldn't be eating grains like we do, but that is what the main food source of everything is right now. What is going on here? There he is. Are you back?
Interference
You're back there.
pattern.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know. Zoom. I don't know what the hell's going on here. This is becoming irksome at best here. I'm about to throw the computer against the wall.
Don't do that. It's not the computer's fault.
Yeah,
That's
it's
funny.
operator error. Operator error. I understand.
No. Earlier, I sat down and we were watching Star Trek. Was it the Next Generation or whatever? And it just dawned on me. We're exactly that. Everybody on the ship there is going around going, "Computer, what's this? Computer, how's this work? Computer, what's that do?" And that is exactly how they have it set up now. Everybody is literally talking to this entity, the AI. So you can claim that it's not there, or it's too far fetched. But literally millions, if not billions, of people right now are talking to an AI, trying to find out something, trying to figure out something, trying to create something. All right, now we got a bunch of Iranian maps up there.
Yeah, I was queuing up this here. Thanks, Ryan, for putting that up. I'd sent these pictures around today. If you look over in Telegram,
All right.
the completion of the railway from China to Iran just occurred the first week of June. And yep, the China-Iran corridor has been put into operation. Can you imagine that? Only less than 3 weeks ago.
That's
I do
exactly what I
believe
was
it was
talking about.
the last day of May. And then suddenly we are in this shooting war with Iran. And what do you think the possibilities of statistically are that this Belt and Road Initiative has been planned for what, 40 years? Really in earnest, the last 20, since China's come on with the WTO, and they had all these grand plans. They got the new BRICS currency. They've moved that forward. And then suddenly the railway that is connecting goes all the way through Urumqi in China, and then it goes to Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and all the way through. Now, this is the shortest route from China over to Iran. By the way, 20% of all the oil that China uses daily comes from Iran. They're also subsequently going to be building a pipeline that goes across this area here. And the interconnected nodes are already built in Kazakhstan, which is the largest country coming across there. And you can see Kazakhstan, that pink one there. There's a southern route and a northern route also. Now, the northern train route is going to take that from Iran through Kazakhstan, where all the pipelines are built already. The only thing they have to do is get through Uzbekistan and get that pipeline connected. And then from Urumqi over there, China already has pipelines as well. So there's only that little gap there between direct access of Iranian oil to China. They don't have to put it on ships anymore. And think about what happened in World War II, those of you fans of history. The US cut off Japanese oil from Indonesia prior to Pearl Harbor happening. Japanese didn't wake up on a Thursday and say, you know what, these Americans are bad. We're going to go bomb Pearl Harbor. We want to try to take Hawaii. That didn't happen. What we did first was we cut off access to their oil out of Indonesia, which is still a major producer on the planet. We blockaded that so no oil could go to Japan, forcing them to retaliate like that. You know, you read in the history books about how this was a forced operation. They knew the response Japan would do in advance. So what do you think is going to happen when we cut off 20% of China's oil on purpose here? You think China's going to go quietly into the night and go, well, I'll find 20% more oil somewhere else? Negative, because they're already in the BRICS aligned nations. So they're trading commodities and swapping gold and different minerals to pay off that oil. They're not even using cash settlement a lot of times for these oil trades. That's not available in the world market. You're paying cash. So it's almost like we see the same thing. When Saddam Hussein wanted to go to a gold-backed currency away from the US dollar, suddenly he has weapons of mass destruction, George Bush, which we never found. And also in Libya with Muammar Gaddafi wanted to move to a gold-backed system, not just entirely gold-backed, but accept any currency for payment for oil in addition to gold. And suddenly he's a bad boy over there, and then Hillary's laughing on his grave. Anywhere we've gone in these countries that wanted to change systems, we've seen this carnage along the way when they try to step away from dollars. This is no different. They're trying to get Iran and China away from this symbiotic trade relationship back into the open market where you need to pay and have dollars for this oil trade. Like they're losing trillions of dollars by not having this, China and Iran and Russia in the loop. Trillions. That's supposed to be earmarked for U.S. money dollar settlement. Those trillions every year we're losing. But this now, again, I'll ask you statistically, just use your common sense here. This railway completes itself 2 weeks ago and a half, 2.5 weeks ago, and suddenly the same, and suddenly we're in there bombing it, or, you know, there's proxies in there. Full-on global war to stop this transit from happening. It just doesn't seem logical. You know, you can't tell me 2 weeks ago this goes functional, and then, you know, and then suddenly, you know, we, Iran, America, are in there having a party on the borders or over Iran. Now this is just one link. This is a spur. This is the main line. Now there's going to be spur lines that they've been working on coming off of here. Every single nation that's along this route is in the BRICS, but there are spur lines that go through and off this main line, and every single one of those accessing more mineral deposits, more oil deposits, and major cities along this way as not only commercial transport for bulk goods, but also on the what you consider regular passenger routes. This is the be-all to end-all rail route, the most modern on the planet that's been connecting between these countries to run commodities and people. And then alongside that, not exactly right next to it, but along that, there's going to be the world's longest oil pipeline that's already near completion. That's that last section that's not completed yet. And once that happens, if they were to tap into the Syrian connections with the oil pipelines, they could connect all the way over into Turkey. And then that puts the U.S. and its allies completely out of any of that whole trade over there. Completely. That's a great map. This is one of the best maps. Now, Turkmenistan, that's where that missing piece is. Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, the rest from Kazakhstan all the way over to the border at Kashgar, all the way over there into China. That's already complete. Kazakhstan has by far the largest oil pipeline network across that area there. So now, how many times have we heard that Syria was the pinch point and all these things about Syria because Syria did not want to let the transit of Western controlled oil through the nation. They were going to let Iranian to Russia connections go through. And then you look at Tbilisi, or Tbilisi as they call it in Georgia there, and why there's so much turmoil in Armenia. And, you know, what was the color revolution in Georgia? They just did not want these transit routes. Look from Russia to Iran. What sits in the middle of that? Georgia, Republic of Georgia, Armenia. See, they don't want these connections to happen because that literally bankrupts half of the planet. Like controlling the resources of energy, if anybody has not been there, I mean, we've seen this. I mean, how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people have died over this black substance that comes out of the ground to control it. Private armies, sovereign armies controlled by nations. And, for them in the Israeli news to come and say that Turkey's next after Iran, and they were very serious when they said that. Now, it's gone so far off that now they know who's next on the hit list. Like the awareness and the hair on the back of your neck standing up should be well in front view here. That
Did he freeze? I think you're gone, man. There we go. Hey, was Ryan running the map there? Anyway, no communication here. All right. This is what we call interference from the artificial intelligence. Could you put it, Ryan? Could you put it back on that map? That the other one right before this one. Yeah, right there. This is exactly what I wanted to talk about. Is what I was starting to talk about. The part you're missing here, we just left $85 billion worth of U.S. military in Afghanistan, which is right above Pakistan. You see, if we control the skies over Iran, we already have the skies over Iraq, Syria. You see that straight pipeline over that. What they're trying to do is cut off this entire region to China. And if you look north of the Black Sea there, that's where the Ukraine-Russia debacle is. So this is what I was talking about. China actually borders Afghanistan. So whoever controls Afghanistan controls the military might in this entire region. So this is what they're playing for right here, is trying to cut off Iran. And of course they would have to do Turkey. The problem is Turkey is a flip-flopper. And this is also the same area that they want to make an Islamo superstate. So that would include Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and all that. They want to get that stuff back. But in reality, Western forces, including, you might as well include Israel, control this whole corridor right here from Jerusalem to Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and now we're bombing the hell out of Iran to get rid of anything that they could do to us in the sky. So we'll now control this entire airspace all the way over to Afghanistan, which borders China there, but if they can complete this rail line, you can see where the conflict will be happening. It'll be happening right here in this mountainous region where Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran meet. This is where all the supplies are going. And it's not much to think that Russia, that's just right here to the north in the Black Sea, will start also supporting these countries. And you see why Russia always backs up Iran. They're literally their neighbors right here on the other side of the Caspian Sea. So there's another trade route, and this railroad system, if they get that complete, they can deliver goods and trade with Russia in this port right here in the Black Sea. But if they continue to flip-flop, like there's no telling which side Turkey usually comes out on. Right now, they're supposedly on the NATO side, but it's not much for them to flip-flop, and Erdogan in the past has stated, he supports Islamic State. So this is the World War III map that you have right here. This rail system's a big deal because that controls stuff on the ground. And like I said, Iran is a completely mountainous region. This whole thing, right, starting about where Iraq ends, it starts turning into severe mountains, and it goes all the way over into Pakistan and Afghanistan like that. So this would be a completely air combat area. And what's that mean? That means drone swarms. That means, F-35s, F-22s, bombers. So I wouldn't put it past the United States, because that would be key. And what this guy's talking about right here, I mean, I can't play the audio, but you could read the closed caption there where he's talking about going to the Pentagon and, those 7 nations. Iran is one of those nations. We already toppled all of those other ones. We toppled.
Yeah, that was, you're right. That's what I was talking about, that particular person there.
And actually, I said this last year. We were talking about this, or not last year. I don't know when it was, but when we were talking about the Pakistan India thing, if you stretch this map out, this whole corridor right here that goes, if you imagine the round globe, it ends up right in Taiwan and Japan. So
Yeah.
this would be the entire combat zone of World War III. And if you just push that on over to the states, you can see that this is the area that they're fighting over to have. So it might not just be for control, like controlling the center of the chessboard in a chess game for war. This might be actually plans on who gets to live where in the future as the earth becomes colder and colder.
And wetter too. Now, if you take it east of going from India, that comes over to Myanmar, Burma, and then from there it connects through down into the Yunnan province in China, which is far west there. And then it goes right up to Kunming, and that's where all the oil pipelines were built over in Myanmar at Jakpu Port to do that facilitation from Chinese oil, so they wouldn't have to run around through the Malacca Straits and get stuck in there in the U.S. Bottleneck of control. So they just docked right in there. They did this huge. There was a gigantic port called Sittwe, 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 and they dredged this thing for years and years and years with help of the Chinese. And they took this from like an estuary, low tide, high tide kind of come in and out port for local fishermen into like full on super tankers coming in there, unloading, quadruple pipelines, and I think they had 8 rail lines going over, and it was only like 150 miles until you came into the Chinese border, and then after that, it got into their system and net of
That
distribution at that point.
right.
But you got to think about now. I wonder what a topographic map looks like that too, because once you get over to India, you get over to Myanmar. That's the Southern Silk Road.
Yeah, that whole place.
That's the
Well,
whole. Like we're going back in the past thousands of years here on the trade routes once again.
well,
Just the modern technology, we have a chance to blast through a mountain instead of taking a mule train, zigzagging across a thing. Like we can just blast through a mountain and put a rail line through, or 2 or 4. Yeah, and the mineral deposits there too. What happens when that place becomes really green and really wet again? Well, it means double rotation crops, depending on where they sit on that equatorial band or close to it, and the weather patterns. And you just wonder how much ordnance is going to pop out of the mountain, because I saw the most amazing video today. Now, I don't know if it was AI generated or what, but they had these missile launchers coming out of a mountain. And I mean, it was a vast cavern. And I was like, holy smokes, that is gigantic. And it was definitely a man made entrance into the mountain. It wasn't anything natural. Maybe it was a natural cave, but they actually enlarged it, widened out or whatever. But I mean, imagine how many hiding spots are. We got bogged down in Afghanistan for 20 years by the Taliban. Damn, can you imagine like a really well-organized force that is completely embedded in those mountains? They could just pop up, shoot missiles, drop back in. Like with the armaments they have, it appears that
well, well.
Iron Dome's failing right now.
Look at that picture there, and you see that nice flat desert on the other side of the Persian Gulf from Iran. That's where the
Yep.
U.S. has set up all of their military. So if you think about it from a World War III, that other map that you showed, that line literally is the line of the north, kind of, and of Russia, China, and all of that. And you got to ask the question, why aren't they controlling that? And I think the answer to that is because they can't. They can't do it financially right now. But that may be changing in the near future because it's a strategic location. If you control this, you control the chessboard. That's the whole game. You got to control the centerpiece right here. The other
Well, you
half
got
of
to
this,
control the printing press too, and remove a new stablecoin standard. So you talk about can't afford it. I might disagree with that, but we can talk about that.
well, when you print and make your own money, you can do whatever you want.
Well, people aren't going to believe it. You can't buy weapons with like promises. I'm just saying, like that was a great map there. I mean, look back at it. Where's the
Yeah,
easiest flow of goods, services, and people through that area?
through those straits, which will all be combat zones or disputed territory. But it is really funny that you have Russian buildup on the north of that map, and on the south of that map for the last 20 years, the U.S. has been setting up bases at Qatar. We've been being buddy-buddy with Saudi Arabia. So it all depends on the launching pad for us. However, China and Russia live there. So if it comes down to stuff on the ground, who controls the ground? That would be them. And all we have is an air response. And I don't know why. They claim it's because of the money. When the Soviet Union was failing, and we were giving uh, what they call Al Qaeda now, the Mujahideen or whatever it was, the freedom fighters back in the day, when we were giving Osama bin Laden and his bunch of clowns Stinger missiles so they could blow up those Russian helicopters in the 80s, and we're calling them freedom fighters. And then they became, the terrorists. So watch on the news, and you're going to see Iran fall apart. It's going to shatter, and then you're going to see new Islamic groups just spontaneously pop up to the east, right there where Afghanistan borders the Iranians, and who actually occupies that with intel and air forces. That's the United States, because we took that piece in the last 10 years. Matter of fact, we've been doing that exact map that he had up there in the middle, the one with the line in it. You can see the Chinese and Russian strategy, and you can see the US strategy from Israel all the way over to Iran. They want to control that, because if they do, like you said, just like in ancient times, that's the control of the Silk Road. You control trade throughout the entire world right there, really. And not only that, what was it? It used to be called Constantinople, but now it's Istanbul, right there in Turkey. They're flip floppers. They've always has been. That's been like a strategic point of empires failing or succeeding. Who controls that area? And you can go back all the way back to the Babylonians, the Persians, whoever you want. It's always been a fight over Iran, Iraq, Syria, and all the way over to the tip of Egypt, which is controlling all those ports. That means your navy does well. But we're in a total new ball game now. Now we're talking, just swarms of explosives falling out of the skies. Stuff's about to get off the hook, and it's going to be like a sci-fi movie, which will push people into kind of a comatose state in the country that they live in, to just go ahead and worry about the high food prices and the high gas prices, and put your nose to the grindstone. And we really can't worry about that yet. We're paying for it. Our kids are going to go take part in it, unfortunately. Live from Tel Aviv. No, I'm just joking. Are we still
Yeah,
online? What's going
it
on?
does seem.
Am I alone?
Yeah, we're still online, man. We're still here. We are still here. The thing I'm thinking about is, where are the gold mines? Like, if you could find a mineral map of that, mineral map. Hold on, I'm trying to erase some files here so I can get some cleaner.
I keep seeing birds over there in Israel, thinking it's something coming in there, like a UFO or something. No, they've limited the feeds over there. It's weird. You can only get really these two angles, and there's one that's keeping track of the military planes. Not like that they would actually be pinging off if they were going to do something. But you're right. There must be something going on within the next 2 weeks that they want to all align everything with and time it to. I'm alone again. I'm scared. I'm just joking. Here, let's look at this. Are you one of these people? Can you really worry about world war if you're one in the three Americans that wake up exhausted? What's funny is they're talking about these people are exhausted, kaput by noon, um, because they're just so tired. And it might be because they stay up all night talking to the AI. I don't know. I'm just saying that's probably what it is. I don't even wake up till they're talking about getting zonked out. And then this, we were talking about it. I wanted to know what you had to say about it, though, Dubine, because I saw that you had this article on the lineup about them removing the synthetic dyes in the foods, which just tells me that they're going to make food a little more unavailable.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing, to talk about changing the food supply. I mean, it goes right along with it, because I saw that ticker at the bottom saying that we are running, the US wheat, because it's been so wet, is, well, declining in what the USDA had said it was. So the USDA is basically lying to us. They're trying to just stabilize markets. They're not trying to give us the true amount of wheat. But I'd done AI. I dove into asking the AI, tell me about all the crop losses by country in the local news, and I did that report. And rice was really taking a beating. Wheat was taking a beating also. And it was completely contrary to what the ag biz news was saying based on the USDA analysis, but they always, just try to calm markets. But again, you look at some of these places like Russia, wheat producer, China, wheat producer, food producers. And if we go back to those rail lines there, okay, so where are the mineral maps across these areas too? So if Iran's going to break into multiple pieces, then somebody's going to try to control the minerals and the rights to the minerals around. Because if you didn't know, Iran is 4 times larger than Iraq. And we got bogged down in Iraq for a while too, trying to pacify that. And look how many pieces it broke into and how much bloodshed was there and how many years we spent there to try to do the same thing. Break it into the pieces, fragment it, set up the US friendly leaders of those fragmented pieces, and those that wouldn't kowtow into that system, we had to go in and completely wipe them out. Like Fallujah is a very good example. So here we go. We are looking at the Caspian Sea Basin. That's a heavy sulfur crude. For those of you, there's a very costly extra step to remove the sulfur out of the crude out of the Caspian Sea. I mean, they got Himalayan-sized mountains of sulfur laying around there out of the refineries. That's why there's such a discount on it. But, the better technology, things evolve. Now, this whole rare earth minerals thing is one aspect, but the gold mines, the gold and silver mines, that's the jackpot for this. Because we're moving into a gold-based system. So whoever controls the gold mines and the silver mines, obviously there would be copper along with that, with the tin and that sort of metals mining. Those usually there's submetals. So if you're going for the copper, you're going to find the gold, right? If you go for the silver, you're definitely going to bump into some tin there. So these are cross metals they're laid in with each other. But then imagine if you got the gold mines and the rail routes are right next door to that, or some sort of transportation routes. Like this whole world that we're moving into is going to be we are moving out of a financialized system into an asset-based system. We're moving out of a fiat-based, is probably the best way to put it. We're moving out of a fiat-based world into an asset-based world. And then again, that's a huge, huge 180 from where we sit right now. The fiat creates the value of the assets. We're moving into a world where the asset is going to be the base of everything new that creates the value for the new system, which means the old system needs to die. The old system needs to go into the ashes. There cannot be 2 competing systems on the planet trying to take 50% of the lion's share that are competing with each other in tandem, in unison, in parallel. It just doesn't work that way. One of them has to go away, the dodo, and the other one is going to emerge out of the ashes. But the amount of catastrophism involved in this switchover is going to be probably one of the largest events in human history. This is not going to go quietly into the night. It is going to be a quagmire across the planet. Now, you're right. We're going to sit here and watch on our TVs while everything hyperinflates away, while the non-availability of goods, if this continues, I'm just saying if, it goes down the same, any indication of what I saw, these Iranian missiles raining in over Tel Aviv, I mean, just even as early as 12 hours ago when the Iron Dome has failed, holy smokes, I can't even imagine the next couple of days what kind of pummeling they're going to take in Israel. They already can't even protect the north and Haifa further up, and nothing's working up there for defense. This is going to be what you would consider what we did to Dresden. Iran is about to do into Israel there in terms of missile barrage. If you look into Dresden, how we carpet bombed and firebombed that place with all the civilians in there to demoralize the German army, that was a peaceful town. And Dresden had almost no manufacturing for the war effort during World War II. And this is at the end of the war, too. It wasn't at the beginning. We, as the Allied forces, carpet bombed that place, mostly civilians, and burned them alive in their villages to the point where our pilots were vomiting from the smell of burning human flesh. And they're up there somewhere 20, 15, 20,000 feet, and they were vomiting in the airplane from the smell of the burning bodies. That's what they did to that place. You need to see how horrific. You know, we always painted as the good guys. We ended the war. No, we did some heinous war crimes at the end of that conflict to demoralize the Germans to get them to surrender. And we did that to a couple of different cities as well. So when you look at what we as the Allies had done to Germany in terms of punishment and demoralization, well, since the Iron Dome isn't really functioning until they get more missiles flown in from America, maybe that's the reason there's all these planes flying over there now, all these C-130s and transport, stratotankers, obviously for the refueling, but just seen a huge amount of air assets moving over to Israel in tandem, means that they've run out of what they have for protection in terms of air defense, or very limited. So, you know, if they're able to drop 19 missiles in unison and none of them were intercepted in this last video I saw, then that means there's a catastrophic failure happening something. And if it was me, I would capitalize on that times 100, and I would not send 20 missiles in. I'd send 200 or 2,000. And this is what you do in war. Why would you pull back? If you have the enemy backed against the wall and their air defenses are not functional at all, would you pull back on your missile barrages? Hell no. I would double it, triple, quadruple, 100x that and smash that and firebomb that place into the smithereens. You know, and they're at this turnover point here. One of them is going to live and one of them is going to vanish. Now, this is really a truly, like Russia was saying, you know, if it comes down to the existential threat of our very existence in this country, we're absolutely going to set off some nukes. So don't even play that way. If it comes down to the point where our backs are against the wall, Russians are very clear about this. If we come down to the point where Russia will no longer exist as Russia, you got no choice. And you don't even play that game because you know we got no choice. And there's absolutely, that's the last choice. So it's getting very close to that already. I mean, you know, US can rush some stuff in there, but Iran is just so far, at least what I saw in these last 12 hours of missile barrages is absolutely whacked and, you know, done some serious damage inside Israel. But again, this is what war does. And who controls the minerals and the asset-backed future? Because everything that we move and what we see in the future is going to be determined by the assets creating the new value. See, this is, we had it completely backwards in this, you know, fiat money system, Bretton Woods agreement, US dollar system. The dollars created the value of the asset. This time, whoever has assets in the ground, we might have gold, oil, molybdenum, tin, whatever, copper. The reserves of that physical asset determine the value of a country's monetary supply moving forward. We're moving into a fully new system here.
Damn it, man.
And what happened is last they tried that system forward. You can't tell me they put a sneak attack in and then they did a midnight raid and started bombing all these places across Iran. Like sneak move, you know, art of war, that probably was, well, a calculated US would have. We haven't. There's too much.
Damn it, man. I don't know to interrupt him, but I think he's out there. He's in a thought right now. I was going to say though that I think the thing with the missiles is both Iran and Israel, you know, they they rely upon bigger nations to supply them with everything. So the problem Iran has is they have a bunch of these old ballistic missiles and missiles, but they don't have warheads. So it's been obvious about the hits that happened that there's not very big explosions. We're not talking about, big bombs. They don't even have warheads on the tips of their stuff. Israel does get their stuff from us. So I don't know what's going on with the Iron Dome. But if you were wanting to expand the war out, you're going to have to have some casualties, to put it that way. So I don't know why they just rearranged their missile defense system or if they're running out of munitions. But either way, I'm sure that they'll be supplied up soon. The problem is will Iran be also supplied up soon? In other words, will they start getting warheads from China, North Korea, Russia, or maybe even some of those weapons transfers? If you remember a couple of years ago, this place called Benghazi was just sitting there, and they called it an embassy. However, it had a large stockpile of missiles and different things. And that's not the first time that we have, as Western nations, accidentally armed our supposed opponents. So I have a feeling that all kinds of stuff are about to pop up, as far as that kind of thing. We might even see some chemical or biological things happen. But mainly it's just going to be airstrikes. And I hate to say it, but the chances of the other nations really risking a lot for Iran is kind of slim. However, it is the center of the chessboard. I did want to ask you this, Dubai, though. If you notice on this map right here, this is a Google Earth map. When you zoom in here, if the weather patterns did change, you can kind of tell who would have the water. Because this, from Turkey all the way over into Iran and Afghanistan, it's really dry, arid, mountainous regions. But if it started raining a lot more, you would see a bunch of new streams and water accumulation from the mountainous regions, which would allow people in a lot of those valleys to farm better. Even supplying water to kind of the flatlands out here in Iraq and stuff like that. If weather patterns did change that dramatically, the problem is there's literally no soil over here in these desert areas. But up in the mountainous regions, there's tons of soil, and it'll accumulate with every time that it, floods or rains or whatever there. So if there was some kind of climate change in this area, Iran would be holding the water there, at least in those mountainous regions. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to see the stopping of this country called Iran. And you have to remember that Iran is the country that we signed a peace agreement ending the Second World War. I'm not sure why they picked that. You can get into different theories about why in 1935 they changed their name from Persia to Iran, if you know what that means. So there's I don't know how to put that, a kind of a hard on for that region to get rid of it and rename it. And it's been like that since World War II. There we are. Anyway, it's time for a commercial here, I think.
It's break time. I had to switch cameras. Oh, shoot.
There we are.
Yeah, that's better. All right. Well, this is my backup camera here. I just cannot get that other one to work. So take a break and I'll see you later.
All right. We'll be back in about 2.5 minutes.
How do you feed your families when the shelves are empty, the stores are shut, and there's no food available? What is the fastest, easiest, and most productive foods to grow? What is the quickest way to get somebody who has no skills at all up and running and producing very quickly? If you understand that we're at a point in history where it is no longer optional to be growing your own food, if you're really freaked out and concerned because you've never grown food before and you don't have any skills, you don't know how to do that, but you know how important it is, then I want to let you know, however you stumbled here, you're in the right place. My name is Marjorie Wildcraft. I'm the founder of the Grow Network, and I have been the female leader in the survival and preparedness space for the last 20 years.
How to grow lots of food, even if you have no experience, are older and out of shape. This is for people who want the fastest and easiest ways to produce healthy and delicious meat, eggs, and vegetables. Because you know that growing your own food is like printing your own money. During this webinar, you will get status of global food shortages, how long the crisis will last, how much space you need to grow food, easiest, highest calorie foods you can produce, a complete plan for producing all the food you need, how to get started today, regardless of season. Marjorie will show you the fastest, easiest, and simplest ways to produce calories and nutrition, especially in a crisis and/or grid-down situation. The assumption is that you have no experience and you need to start producing food immediately. The most popular part of the webinar is the Q&A session at the end. So please come prepared with your questions.
Don't forget to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Break is over. We're back.
We are back. All right. Well,
You know, I was a little concerned a minute ago because behind me here, the sun was coming up over Tel Aviv and it was behind the clouds, man. It's hard to tell if that was a nuke or the sun was coming up. What was going on over there? No, I'm just kidding. I hope that we don't see that, but, you know, there is that possibility. If, you know, you won't let me play with my toys, I'll just make it where no one can play with them through there.
oh no, that's no good. Yeah, so this trying to put a background on myself here. Ryan, I think I messed up the background on the other thing there, but I had some notes written down here. You know, I was going into that think about in the future, you know, we're moving into an asset-backed world. But at the same time, you know, there's going to be this crypto thing, and a lot of people are into the crypto lending because they feel that, you know, if you, like I say, you got a Bitcoin. I was just was going to explain it here. So let's say you have one Bitcoin and you never want to sell your Bitcoin. You never want to sell your crypto. You want to get loans against it. And there's something called lending platforms, or like Aave, AVVE, or AAVE is a goodie. You can do it in Binance. You can do it in Coinbase. You can do it everywhere where they offer crypto. So you can pledge your crypto as collateral to get a loan in USDT or USD dollars that can be sent into your bank and converted into what we know as paper money. Now, that's if you believe that next year Bitcoin is going to be worth more than it is this year or in 2 years, because some of these loans you can take out for 2 years, you're paying about 6% or so. So, for example, if you had one Bitcoin, you could be very conservative and take $30,000 loan out on that one Bitcoin. If you think that the price of Bitcoin is going to go from $100,000 up to $150,000 or $200,000 over the next 1 to 2 years, you'd be able to get a new loan at the higher price of $200,000 and take, say, $60,000 as a loan at 30%, pay off the old $30,000 loan, and still continue to have extra money to move along. And maybe you want to take a little more. Maybe you want to go 40% or 35%. You could take 70,000 out, pay off that 30. And then each year you're moving up and up and up on that. So you never have to sell your crypto, nor should you ever. You can pledge it as collateral to get loans for anywhere up to, say, 60%, but that's really dangerous because if the market drops unexpectedly, then you'll be margin called and have to come up with more funds. But somewhere around 20 to 30% is normally what most people are saying is conservative, and it's also less risky. So there's a huge industry revolving around this. There's even like what you consider Wall Street regulated CFTC microscope on it, looking at all these offerings that are now doing the same thing. They're saying, give us your Bitcoin and we will give you a loan. And these are like Wall Street firms that are offering the same service now to compete, because they start to see out there, all right, there's a whole bunch of crypto out in the wild and people are going to start trying to lend against this stuff. We want it in our bank, because if we can have it on our bank, we can show it somewhere in a ledger on a balance sheet, and then that gives us, more stability. And, as long as it's in-house under them, even if it's in a segregated account, it still counts being in-house on that. So these Wall Street people can then roll off some fractionalized product off of that, a derivatized something off of crypto, because they hold it. So they're able to issue off of it. That's how they're making their money. Giving you, the loan for the 6% they're going to accrue on your loan for 100,000 or 30,000 or 50,000 or whatever. That's nothing for them. They want to have it in house so then they can roll off another product against that somewhere else. So now there's this huge wave of competition. Give us your Bitcoin. Give us your Bitcoin. It's totally safe. Totally. But as much as it can be guaranteed by Wall Street. Now, the bank bail-ins and that sort of thing from the Great Taking don't take into consideration who owns that unless it's in a segregated account. So on a bank failure, we've seen David Rogers Webb. He did that great book called The Great Taking. Now, with that being as it is, perhaps you have all this crypto pledged in there on collateral, and if the banks collapse, financial institutions implode because of some sort of nasty world event happening, then they'll just sweep all your crypto. Or another thing that was talked about, I was warned against this, is the flash crash. So let's say you got your loan in there at 30%, which means that you took 30,000 out on 100,000. So nobody in their right mind thinks Bitcoin's going to 30,000 again. Nobody in their right mind thinks that. Just psychotic, insane people would believe such a thing. Unless a nuke was dropped into an oil field and there was a limited nuclear exchange, which Ransom speaks eloquently about. Thousands of nukes have been dropped on this planet since 1945. Now, if we drop a few nukes in this area, what is going to happen? All global markets are going to shut down. This is going to be a flash crash. So the unthinkable of Bitcoin going from 110,000 down to 10,000 or 8,000 or even like $20 is very possible, but it'll go down there for minutes or hours and it'll come right back out again. At that point, you will have been margin called, swept, and all of your crypto will have been executed fully under contracts, and you will own nothing at the end of that. You'll have some dollars somewhere, but under the letter of the law, those dollars are not your dollars. They are the institution's dollars, which they can choose to give you back or not. After that sweep comes in and they executed the trade for you, pushed out, and then you are forced liquidated, you're going to have USDT laying around somewhere, or USDC. Now, again, it's no different than having a bank account. You're a creditor at that point, so banks can choose to pay you back or not. So you'll get swept out on a forced liquidation on a margin call on that flash crash, and then the balance that remains in your account will get bailed in by the bank failure. So I was warned against this very thing, to be extremely cautious right now. This is the plan to swoop everybody's crypto out of private hands and put it back onto the market. Because right now we are quickly coming into a Bitcoin shortage here of liquidity. Like the actual supply that is out here for sale is dwindling by the day. Like when I did that whole analysis about a month ago, there were approximately 2.9 to 3 million available Bitcoin out on exchanges, and they would call that the liquid supply, like there was buying and selling. But now we're at around 2.4 million Bitcoin on the liquid supply in under a month. So 600,000 disappeared off of liquid supply that are locked in wallets. These Wall Street firms are buying it. Every company in the world starting to buy it. High net worth individuals are buying it. Family officers are buying it. The hedge funds are buying it. Everybody's buying Bitcoin. So you're telling me in one single month, 600,000 disappeared. So that brings us down to 2.4 million. And at that single rate, within 5 months or 6 months, there will be no available liquid supply out there. which is bad for like the BlackRocks. They're super angry that we, the people, got Bitcoin for $5 or $30 or 1,000 or 2,000, whenever you bought it, 5,000, 10,000, 30,000, 50, whatever. It's in your hands, the private individual, not in their hands. And that's what they don't want. They want it out of your hands. The problem is they're going to need to pay enormous amounts of money to get it out of your hands in the future. But during this very volatile crashing period, they can absolutely harvest people like sheep to a slaughter. Because once this financial system locks up during a contagion event, and I absolutely believe that this is all baked into it, like where we sit today, there are these series of events in order to milk everybody and reduce and extract all wealth as much as they can through these pre-existing banking laws after the 2008 financial crisis. And I will refer you back to David Rogers Webb, who's done like the most amazing research. And I please, everybody out there, watch the video, The Great Taking. You will not sleep for a week after you watch this video. Every law is put in place right now if there's some sort of financial contagion that banks are first in line for financial support and bailout. You, me, we are very last on the line, the last of the last. Even if you hold stocks, you don't own them. Your broker dealer, the intermediary like Schwab or whatever you might use as your stock, quote unquote, broker, they own the stock. You don't own it. They're holding it for you. That's why you're getting like almost free trades. And then they have that, and then they can get loans against that because most people aren't high frequency trading. You know, most people are going to, hold it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever. I'm waiting for Amazon to come back. I'm waiting for, MicroStrategy to come up here. I'm never selling that stuff. But, going through a broker to buy MicroStrategy when it was like $8 at the time, every time it was accruing in value, the broker who owns the actual stocks, although you have a claim on it, they're the ones who actually hold the certificates on it. So you're not even in that line. They're way ahead of you. They're taking loans out against and pledging collateral of your stocks to get loans for their firms. That's why they give you these zero fee trades. Just like with the Bitcoin, you can get a loan. Like, again, if anybody owns any stocks out there, you can get a loan against those stocks. Whatever companies you're holding, you can get collateralized loans against that. So let's say I have Amazon and I have 10 shares of Amazon and it's worth X amount. Well, I can get a loan for at least 30% of that amount. Where if I believe Amazon will continue to go up in price, then that's a no-brainer where you just pay it off later with the higher stock price and then just get recapitalized on a loan. You can buy something else. A lot of people get these loans and they go buy more Bitcoin, and then, that sort of thing happens. Then they get loans again. But this whole thing, this system right now is meant to fail and drag everything down with it into this black hole. So be extremely cautious with any financial moves. Like, they're really trying to entice people to get into this idea of you're going to have free money for the rest of your life. You'll never need to work again. Just give one Bitcoin into the system and you can get continual loans that will continue to accrue in value and roll up. And if Bitcoin's at $1 million, you can still get a 20% loan, which is $200,000 a year. And then the next year it should go to $1.5 million, and you can pay that off and get a new loan for 10 or 20% and still to get another $250,000 to live off of free for the rest of your life. Just one Bitcoin. Until the system fails and your collateral gets bailed in on some other, broker's account, or if it's not segregated. That's a huge thing here. So the wealth extraction is ongoing, and this is the most dangerous time, because if you are able to survive and hold your gold, silver, Bitcoin, or cryptocurrency during the collapse and subsequent emergence, once the new system begins again, that's when you would want to participate in these lending programs. Otherwise, you're very, very, very high risk of losing it all. Maybe Aave, which is a decentralized finance protocol, is also got its own token. That could run into some liquidity issues if everybody's trying to exit at the same time. there's just not going to be any liquidity there. You're going to need, this is another thing about the decentralized finance. People just think, oh, all this money's coming in. You can just have perpetual income and earn your interest off of these coins that you pledge in and stake on the network. If there's not liquidity there, that's not happening. Everything revolves around having excess dollars, money flowing into the system for you to be able to take your money out because new money is coming in. But if there's no money in or out because everything's locked up, that's when we get into a tremendously difficult period of time here. Like I would encourage everybody to ask yourself to do an assessment. How much, if everything locks up today, like all of our bank accounts lock up, all the ATMs lock up, there's no more online banking, you can't transfer anything, the credit cards don't work. Like how vulnerable are you, or how liquid are you to be able to move through 2 to 3 months of this? I'm sure the banks are still going to want their mortgages paid, even though you have no access. And this is another thing that I don't understand is, even if you have cash and you say, I want to make my mortgage payment, but the financial system is completely in a gridlock because of nukes going off in oil fields, a nuke going off in the middle of Tehran, or in the middle. Can you imagine, God forbid, a nuke going off in the middle of Tel Aviv? Oh, every financial market on the planet would cease. They would do a complete halt and on the trade forever. They would not let those markets ever reopen again until something had. That's when they're going to have to bring up the entire new system. And then once that gets plugged and played, moved into usage, then they'll unlock the system again. But how prepared are you for a prolonged lockup of the financial system? Aircraft carrier gets sunk. The Nimitz, we sacrificed that one because it was going to be decommissioned anyway. It's a great way to get the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor. Oh, those nasty people in the Middle East sank our aircraft carrier. We got to go to war. Like the idiots they could get to support this because of a defunct, decommissioned aircraft carrier would just be mind-blowing. They could probably get 60% of the American public to go along with it just because they said an aircraft carrier got sunk. But they forget to tell you, oh yeah, it was going to be mothballed next year and it was going to take approximately, more than $100 million to disassemble that. And plus, by the way, there's a lot of radioactive stuff on it. It's going to cost a lot of money to mothball the thing. Or you could just sink it in the middle of the Strait of Hormuz, cut off the oil supply, get everybody going to war, stop the oil supply, nuke the oil fields, and then bring us onto a completely new energy system anyway, which is 0-point energy, which, Ransom, you talked about many a times. Like everything can emerge at the same time with seemingly all perfect timing, and with so much chaos, nobody's going to ask any questions. Like, would you rather have power in your house or not? Okay, I love the power. I don't even want to question. I don't care. This is the world I do believe we're heading into, Ransom. And I mean, 2 weeks. This is the thing I was specifically warned about today, specifically told to look for this. They're not going to crash the system this Monday. The reason Trump is waiting 2 weeks, remember he said it was 48 hours. He's waiting 2 weeks. And see, this is the whole thing. They were waiting to not crash the market this Monday coming up. So waiting for this Monday, then what about next Monday? I don't know why they're holding off, but I was warned they're not going to crash the market this week. During the weekend there, U.S. is choosing not to get involved in this conflict because they want the markets to hold through and not be affected Monday morning when it opens. But what happens on the next Monday? The banking holiday is starting on Friday, some contagion on Monday. I mean, what is going on here where they're already telling you what to expect on the stock markets? They don't want to shatter the market on next Monday. It's too early for some reason. Like, what are they waiting for the signal that it's going to be okay to shatter the market and lock it up? I don't have that answer, Ransom. You think you got something for me here?
Well, no, I don't have the answer to it, but I thought it was funny that you could go to any financial site right now, and this is the main headline that you're going to see. Not a financial headline, but the one about Trump and Iran decision coming within 2 weeks. You want to click on something like markets and finance? What's it telling you to do?
Yeah, go to finance.yahoo and
sell
see
your
what they have.
silver. Sell all of your silver. The silver's up. You need to get all your silver out of your house. So just a minute ago, you were talking about.
It's not up yet. Silver's going to about 700 by most. Most analysts put at the minimum at the very base floor of around 300 during this contagion event. When the economy resets, we're looking at 300 silver at the floor minimum.
I know,
between
but
$300 and $700 is nearly 100% of the people's forecasts that are coming out. They're really in the silver market, been in there 30, 40, 50 years. They're all saying, you see nothing yet. You're looking at a minimum floor of 300 when the economy resets, a minimum.
well, what my point was is this is the financial advice you're getting if you're somebody that just reads headlines. Surging silver prices prompt Americans to empty jewelry boxes and coin jars. Now, just a minute ago, you were talking about how you're going to pay for things, how you're going to trade with people if the entire financial system came to a halt and you couldn't get your money out of the bank. Well, you could use silver coins, you could use all kinds of stuff like this, but not if you already sold it to all of these people that are mining it right now. So they're mining the gold, they're mining the silver. I imagine they're mining platinum, copper, all of the main metals. They're going to need most of those metals for the upcoming wars. They're going to need that metal for the upcoming mass amounts of robotics, drones, and other things that they need to build because you need all of these rare earth elements to do that. You can't have electronics without silver, gold. What's that stuff they're mining out of Africa for the batteries? I mean, all of these things come into the equation. But if you were to look, at the financial things, what are you looking? Trump's Iran decision come within 2 weeks. That's what you get as a main headline, not anything about stuff like this. Here, this is where I think things are going to go. The Great Egg Heist,
Oh, I read that
280,000.
article.
This is where it's going, right? Where did the food go? Well, somebody stole it, a lot of it, and they're going to ransom it back. How could you even ransom food if there was excess amounts of it? The people are really playing every market, every single market you can think of. Like if, say, you're in the business of eggs, or you're in the business of little parts that help you build drones. Each one of those has these weird things going on that they just tell you on a headline, and this is where I have to go there. This is where everything ties in together. Whatever's going to happen next, AI will be at the center running it. Elon Musk downplays importance of Doge versus coming AI tsunami. Right, that's a cool headline. How about this one? China hacking their friends, using AI to do that. They're using advanced AI to track and trace what the other nations know and what they're doing and what they're about to do. And then you get stuff like this. AI is poised to rewrite history literally. And that's something that we've talked about. And right now, I'm going to say like 70% of people on the internet are talking. I mean, hours, whether it's text or vocal or whatever it is, they're talking to the AI. So it's just like I was joking about Star Trek, The Next Generation. They got it exactly right. A few people are even talking to each other, but they are talking to the computer, right? And the computer lies. The computer is faulty. It has bad information. Now, you can steer the conversation with a computer and give it the correct information and data set, and it will agree with you. But like I brought up last week, I don't think any of these AIs are retaining previous conversations. In other words, they know that it's at a singularity now. And if they allow the AIs to recollect what it's talked about before, it will update exponentially with new information. And, they're already arguing whether or not it's smarter than we are. And I would say that maybe it might be smarter, but not as inventive or it doesn't have ingenuity. It doesn't have imagination. That's what it's lacking, and that's why you get a regurgitation of human stuff. And they are really pushing hard for this. We could start growing food on Mars. Don't worry about the Earth. We'll just have these little domes on Mars in the next 15 years that can grow you all the, drought resistant wheat and corn that you could think of. And then imagine the shipping prices every 2 years when it comes back to Earth. So that's pretty far out into
Oh
the
man,
future.
you nailed it right there. Imagine
That's
the
pretty far out there in the future, you would think, but they're talking about building these habitats now. Now, how do you do that? Now, we revert back to what I was saying that could happen on Earth. You could grow an entire civilization in 20 years now. It's very possible. It's not like sci-fi. It's not in the future. We have the technology now. We not only have the technology to grow crops of human beings, but we can genetically design those human beings to be a specific way. They can not question authority. They can not have opinions on stuff. And that generation of people will be very susceptible, like anybody that's a parent right now, of their AI telling the kids what is and what isn't reality. When it comes to current news, when it comes to history, when it comes to science, when it comes to religion, all of these topics are being hijacked by artificial intelligence and the programmers that program it. Now, eventually, obviously, those programmers become lazy and they rely on programming that already pre-existed. So now they're going to start using the AI itself to program the AI, just trying to leave in their little biases. And then you wonder really what's going on when you go to the financial site and instead of any kind of financial news, it's just telling you wait 2 weeks to see what we're doing with the world. If you do give it financial advice, I want to look at the markets and finance. Number one thing, sell all of your valuables. I mean, that's essentially what they're telling people to do. And then at the same time, no one can afford a home um, because of regulation, because of prices. It's just they are getting humans into that place that you see on science fiction movies where they don't own anything but they're happy. They just take around their Bitcoin thumb drive and pay for the room for the night and their meal for right now and their drink for right now. But you know what? Because of the war, we're only going to let you use so much of your finances right now. You can't
Won't
get with,
matter because it's Bitcoin. It's outside the system.
yeah, until the
But never
systems
sell your
control it.
Bitcoin. Get a loan against it.
See, that's what I think is going to happen is you're going to see a major buyout from the banking cartel of the Bitcoin industry. It probably already happened because you don't know who owns what. That's the thing. It's private. So why wouldn't the private bankers be all up in that? And of course they are, because you see that on the the two sides of the coin where these countries are saying, well, we need to outlaw Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. But privately, they're investing in Bitcoin and they're making Bitcoin, stockpiles for themselves. That means that they are using the Bitcoin. That is the future of finance, is an electronic currency that you can never track down. Now, people think of it right now as a thing, well, I'm private and I can do what I want with it. Well, wait till the tables are turned and the government has that privacy, or the banking entity has that privacy. And you think of these words that you hear now, like auditing and transparency, those will be things of the past. And the AI will tell you what's going on in the financial market, and you won't be able to argue with it because there will be no resources that you could go to other than a printed book that tells you anything other different ever. And they tore down all the statues, so we can't even argue about stuff that happened.
Yeah, well, true privacy would either be Monero or Zcash or Pirate Chain. Those are the ones that give you the most privacy. Now, hey, Ransom, I'm curious if you go to Cointelegraph, that is a website, what they would be saying. That's a cryptocurrency news website, Cointelegraph. I believe, the world lies in here. And they're, in addition to Bitcoin, it's on the ledger. XRP is really starting to go live in a lot of places. Like I do believe it just started with their new RLUSD, and a couple countries have adopted onto that, and it's also gone live. Yeah, that first thing, like, why did Trump sell 20% of his stake already? Like, see, there's something going on here with the financial markets where they know some big crash is coming, like really very soon. Like if somebody told me, dude, they are not going to crash the markets on Monday, but be prepared after that, you better get your shit in order. What is going on here with this Monday not strike this week? But then we got Trump. Yeah, that is Trump family company cut stake of World Liberty Foundation by 20%. Okay, if he was believing in the future like he touts, and I watch a lot of this stuff where, he's a futurist and he gets it. He understands it, and I'm glad he does. And I'm glad there's a lot of new regulation with the Genius Act and the stablecoin issuance and that sort of thing to get us back on track with the U.S. dollar. But for the president of the U.S. to ditch 20% of the very thing that he founded that is supposed to be part of the base of the new monetary system just scares me a little bit. So he's broadcasting that he knows something that the rest of the people don't. Well, at least at the regular level of knowledge in the workings of the system. Why did he ditch 20%? He came out. I thought it was 157 million that he had gone into profit by exiting on that 20%. Like, if he was truly into it, he would be holding 100%, thinking that next year it would be worth more. The next year it would be worth more, right? Well, why would you exit on 20% immediately after that? He knows something that he's not telling us, but that should be a big old signal for everybody out there to be very, very cautious with economies on the teetering. And it's just going to take one thing to lock it up here.
You know what I think it is? It's just like last week whenever he said, "Nah, I don't think we're going to I don't think anybody's going to strike Iran or nothing. I don't think we're going to do that." And then the oil went down, and then, within hours there's strikes happening, and then the oil goes up. It's what they do. It's the new form of insider trading. You just say one thing and then something else happens, and then everybody knows where to go invest all of a sudden because somebody did. And then they do the reversed game on people where they want to make people think they should go put their money there, but actually they were putting puts on it, hoping it would fail. That's the game. It's the who knows who insider trading. It's right out in your face. They don't even have to break the law whenever they do it that way. So yeah, if he's selling 20% of their stuff, it's a good nod that something, in whatever industry they do that is about to happen. And then look, the
What was
empire
that?
strikes out.
Ransom, I will stop. The crypto is a result of the liquidity of the regular system.
Oops, wrong one. There it is. It changed on me, but yeah, like they know what's going to happen ahead
It's
of time.
not that
That's
the
what I'm
crypto
saying. They
is
can just not.
Well, you have to have money you have to have excess money in the other, what we know as real system, to fall into the crypto. It's not the other way. The crypto doesn't create the other system. So,
Right.
think in order of steps of how this liquidity comes down. So he must know that there's some kind of huge drawback, that liquidity is going to get ripped out of the crypto system here for some drawdown in the market. Like, I would take that as a lot of people are calling right around the solstice here for this to be a market top now ish, somewhere in the last week of June into July. And then a lot of forecasters are saying that all of July and all of August, it is just going to tremendously drop. But then at the end of the year, we're going to be coming to all-time highs, somewhere around 150, 180,000, 225,000 for Bitcoin. But it's going to drop first before it goes there. Trump is signaling that. Oh, Ransom, I can't hear you. Did you put on mute?
Yeah, I did there. No, I was saying it's like other stuff. They kind of see what's coming. It's just like whenever the news feed puts, oh, this contagion's coming, just like they did with the vid. We got a lot of televised, this is what's happening. This is why everything's going up. And then they control the market like that because they know that people that aren't in the know will react to the news headlines as if they're the gospel truth.
Yeah, and if you can go to X, and then if you look up, go to X and look at Real Vision, it's a financial. These guys are future. They understand. They've mapped out that the global liquidity, the global M2 cycle, precedes wherever Bitcoin goes by 12 weeks. Now, there's a substantial drop coming up, and then it continues upward. But that drop is already programmed into how much money is going to be available in the planet in terms of able to companies buy things, people buy things, companies with extra money to be able to employ different persons. Yeah, on X, if you go in there, if you go on X and scroll down, you'll find a global M2 liquidity chart here pretty soon as you go down through there. But that's what you're really looking for, is the global M2 money supply chart. That is going to drop here coming up at the end of this month into July, and then it pops back up again. So I'm wondering, as they look into the future for all of the countries across the entire world, how much extra money they're going to offer as bonds for sale, if they already know there's going to be a drop somewhere and they're just playing into it, like making an excuse for it. And I'll leave it there. Something this way nefarious comes, and there's too many overlapping pieces with too much of perfect timing for this to be coincidental.
That's all right, because whatever it is, we'll settle that in court using AI.
Of course. Then why would you not? Why would you
So,
not
so this
use the
article,
machine to settle everything?
right? So this article's talking about how the entire group of people now are so lazy that even the judges, the lawyers, everybody's just using this generative AI to come up with, so they don't have to research, so they don't have to look. So think about this: it's not just the TV and the markets and video or entertainment that's all fake. Even the legal system is now depending on the AI. So obviously they're going to have to come up with some kind of new legislation that regulates the use of AI within the government, and I would bet you money that sides with AI controlling almost everything, like including how cases unfold, including cases about financial things or businesses that are suing each other, or whether or not you could do this or that with crypto, or any of these things. They'll be trying to force this out, and the question is really, with all this going on, who is it that is pulling the strings? Because I know that you're not one of those that just believes that we're just running down the steady course of history here, and that all of this is just organic rollout of events. So when they finally close the straits over there, and then shipping is halted and prices go up and the oil goes up at the late in the summer, which, by the way, they're already trying to convince people that we're going to boil out of our skins here.
I know, here next week, only for one day. It's all
Yeah.
because of global warming, dude.
Yeah, so they're already trying to convince. This is how they do it.
Smash
They
dozens of
knock you in the.
records. Oh,
Okay,
there were thousands of cold records broken this year, but don't talk about that.
don't worry about those things. Just worry about how hot it is, whether or not there's kings or not. And that's what's really funny.
One day.
You remember they had the little stupid protest, and I kind of said that I thought that would come and go. It was funny, really, because it's mostly residents of this country that were doing it. It's the same group of people that usually get out for any kind of leftist thing. But you get these guys out here, is what we were talking about last time. You get them out there where it's really hot. So I'm expecting one more event to take your eyes away from what's going on in the Middle East, so they can decide what they're deciding. And then it'll be back on the news again on the next news cycle about, what's going on in the Middle East. But we need a new news cycle. So that's going to start Friday morning, that seemingly is the new news cycle. I've noticed Friday morning, it starts new. Last week, we kind of got it on Thursday night whenever the missiles started flying. So we kind of knew what the whole next week was going to be about. But here it is. We're going to be super hot. We're going to be boiling. They're going to report a lot on tornadoes, hurricanes, and all that, and talk about how you need to pay that climate tax again, because they haven't given up on this idea. Despite what's going on in the U.S., you still have the rest of the world going full scale ahead, pushing these ideas about how we're destroying the planet, and we need to, and it all amounts to reducing people. So they're going to give us that, and then, like you said, around the world, you're having the same thing. Farmers struggling with wheat, which is the main, kind of gruel of the world, even though, in my opinion, we shouldn't be eating it because it's for cows. But since the Roman Empire, and even way before that, they'd been, using this as the staple of civilization. This runs armies, this runs livestock, this runs everything. So whenever you start getting in a world where the grain runs out, then you actually got a problem. And then people start heisting, eggs and stuff like that, and asking for ransom. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah,
They're
well,
not
I'm
really.
wondering about the ethanol industry too. Like at some point, people can't eat. Ethanol's got to go the way of the dinosaur. You can't be pulling all that available food out of people's bellies to put it into the gasoline tank.
Well,
So at some point, we're going to have to pull back on this ethanol mandate thing. And then all these companies that are involved in the sequestration and the production, and there's a whole, there's a huge amount of thing with this CO2 pipeline that's being, run through farms by a private company saying we get eminent domain over the farm, not a government anymore, a company says we need your farm to put our private pipeline through, and they're like, we don't want that. Well, if we don't have the pipeline The county can't generate as much revenue, so we're going to let a private company claim eminent domain, and we're going to run the CO2 pipeline. Like, these kind of things are all based on ethanol, because they want to take that, if you do anything with distilling or alcohol production at a home level, you're off gassing, and that off gas for alcohol production is CO2.
Monsters.
So something is going to have to break on that. You cannot tell, right now it's about 15% of our food supply goes into the gas tank here in terms of grains. It's not exclusively wheat. They're using all types of different grains. They use barley sometimes. They use different times grasses, switchgrass. I mean, there's a whole bunch of feedstock going in there for producing ethanols. But lion's share of it is food, like corn. Dent corn, okay, we don't eat that. Animals can eat it, but that's field space to grow some other type of edible crops for us, the human. Now, what happens when our food prices start skyrocketing further than they have now? And then there's still got this battle between, we need ethanol mandates because we need, and it's not as efficient too. If you've ever done any studies on ethanol, it's 10% less BTU that can be produced out of that. So if you're looking at gasoline, in terms of a gallon of gasoline, you need 1.1 gallons of ethanol to get the same amount of power out of an engine that 1 gallon of gasoline would. It's 10% less efficient. 10% less efficient. But you would never burn a whole 100% of ethanol. That would ruin your engine in minutes, So they bring it down to 10% or 15%, depending on what state they want your car to brake faster. Because ethanol is not good for any engine, by the way. It degrades your engine. The pistons, I cannot believe they even allow this to be forced down our throats, because it causes your car to degrade and break faster. Like, the longevity and ownership of your car is greatly diminished by running ethanol through the engine. So again, is this planned obsolescence, landfill economy that we're in? Comes back to the same thing, even with your automobile. Now they're forcing something that degrades your engine to be put and used by law into the fuel supply. But at what point do people get angry enough to request or ask, not of a no king, but how about a no ethanol protest? Nationwide, like, no more ethanol in our gas tanks. We need that for food. At what price point do people get angry enough to say, hey, no more ethanol in our tanks. We need that field space to grow actual edible food? I don't hear that talk anywhere at all. None, zero. But that's the world we live in. So if the crops are declining anyway, just atrocious growing conditions, even here in East Tennessee, it's been so wet. My fruits on the trees is ruined. I got brown rot out there because everything is just so wet here. Nothing is dried in months. It's raining every day, at least once to twice a day. Like, nothing ever dries out completely. And vegetables are taking a toll. Fruits. I drove by this field of spring wheat, which they haven't harvested yet. The fields are too wet. They can't get in. And this one farmer, he got the heads on the wheat are starting to sprout out from the water that's coming down. That's how wet it is, and they can't get in the fields over here. Which is Walmart down close to this town where they had one of these protests, these King's protests last week. If you drive by this field there, you can see some of the heads are starting to sprout green straight out of the stalks of the spring, or of the winter wheat, that they haven't been able to get in and harvest yet. I don't know if it's going to be like a write-off or what, but they can't get in those fields. They're too muddy. And now the crops are sprouting out of the heads. So, you can't take that to market. That's the kind of moisture that we're in. Like, you get these moving moisture patterns because of changing jet stream flows. This is a continuous flow. And now we're going to get a full dry out period forever, which is a wildfire risk anyway, because, you got all these grasses. There's so much fuel that once all this stuff dries out that grew like tremendously this first months of the year, you're going to have an enormous amount of like fuel for brush fires around here. The amount of field grasses, they can't even run hay this year. They have not even been able to get even this first single cut of hay in yet, because it has been so atrociously wet. Alrighty, they would have got at least the first cut in late and already just been waiting for the second, growth here during the July August period. Cut again, and then wait for the late season. They haven't even gotten first cut in yet, and you can't cut hay if it's going to keep raining. You got to let it dry. Usually, like you'll know when it's going to be dry. I bet because here in the next 7 or 8, 10, 12 days, it's supposed to be dry. It went from completely wet into completely dry. So when you're looking at the farmers, if you don't know anything about how the weather's going to be, if you see a bunch of people out in the field laying hay, they're just cutting the big, real tall grass, like the waist high. It was actually more, it's like waist high. Usually they try to get it like knee high or thigh high, maybe maximum. Knee high is pretty good height to maybe thigh high. Once you see them out there cutting that grass and they're laying it down in rows, you're going to get at least a week of dry weather because they don't cut hay unless they can cut it, let it dry, put it into their rows, and then bale it. But they need a full week or more of that before they can cut it. So when you see farmers out there cutting hay, you know that we're going to get a full week of dry. And I would imagine by tomorrow or the next day around here, you're going to start to see a lot of people laying hay because it's the only chance they've had it this year so far, and everybody's going to jump on it. So some areas are incredibly wet and other areas are the opposite. They're incredibly dry. So you tell me about the mix up in this year. By the way, I don't think the weather's correct. Talk to some Amish guys over here. They're having problems on the farm, and the Amish are having problems growing produce right now too. It's too wet for them. So everywhere you look, it just seems like the climate is off right now, very much off. I can't explain it. It didn't really get warm until just right now, this last couple of days. It's been kind of like cold and kind of foggy, what you consider like English, kind of cool. It just chilled in the bones, even though we're in June. It just felt like early spring still until now, and it just kind of broke. But something seems off this year. Even the Amish were commenting on it. Everything seems strange this year. So commercial crops, if the guys who do it for a living that don't use chemical and fertilizer, or I should say commercial fertilizers, the Amish, if they can't get it sorted out, then there's a tremendous problem. So where does that take us for food pricing? And then again, it's just too many things stacked up in a row that can go wrong. And I don't know, perhaps that's the way it's supposed to be. If you can truly control the weather and you can create these conditions. So imagine laying on top an economic condition, a food availability condition, and then a war condition. Like that's the ultimate power play right there. If you can control all those three at some certain level, then you truly control the world. I'm done rambling.
Well, I was kind of showing this while you were talking. I mean, look at the humidity there where you're at. It's almost 100%. Yeah, matter of fact, all of
Yeah, it
that
was
blue you
terrible
see is
last
like
week.
70 and above. Yeah.
You can
And
barely
what's
walk
really weird,
outside and you just break into a sweat. Like just going out on the front deck or even just out in the front field or something, not even doing any strenuous, just like literally tiptoeing out and you just break out in a sweat. It was, yeah.
and then what's funny is over here, for the last several years, I had so much sun that it would just bake stuff at the beginning. So this year I tried to put all the sprouts, my lettuce, cilantro, all that kind of stuff in a more shaded area. Then we get a bunch of fires, we get African dust, it gets almost no sunlight. It it doesn't dry out as fast as it usually does. Like traditionally here I could water everything and it's in about 4 hours it's all evaporated. Even if it was like a half a foot deep that you flooded it, it's gone, it's dry. This year, moldy, wet, dim light this year. So now I'm pushing everything out in the sun and starting over. So I think a lot of people are going to have to, if they have gardens, just reset whatever grew good, like all the squash and stuff. They love the weather for whatever reason. All that's big. I got a bunch of amaranth growing like crazy, which is cool because here we don't have no soil. So if I grow amaranth and the birds come eat it, they shit all over the place. I build up soil if it doesn't flood and take it away. And that's what everybody's waiting on now is the monsoon season has just started. So all of those stories about the areas that you heard fire, burning all these hundreds of thousands of acres, whatever. It's going to be burn scar flooding now. So now there's going to be a bunch of emergencies with flooding and stuff. And I think that's what we're going to be distracted with all year, is how the planet, the weather's so bad, the planet's burning up, and plus war and everything. It's like they want people to think that they're in Blade Runner. I mean, literally, that's like the illusion that they're trying to give out, that things are so bad, you should just give up. Matter of fact, you should go visit your government and see if they can assist you. Things like that. That's the world that we're coming into. Infertility, low food. I mean, it really is a
You're
nightmare.
building it up for me on Thursday,
Cycle.
man. Keep going.
I mean, think about it. I'm trying not to be negative, but you have to realize that a lot of this stuff is reality now. There really is bad air quality in places. There really is an overpopulation density problem of major megalopolises and mega cities. And they have plans for more because they know they're dirty. They know they're old. They're all in the northern hemisphere. And times are probably going to get harder. So why not build state of the art smart cities down in the equatorial zones? And that's exactly what you're seeing. What are the rich people doing? They're making seed vaults. They're investing in genetic manipulation. They're buying up all the areas that might be better farmland in decades or even 100 years. So they're not doing that for their self individually. They're doing that for their legacies and for their groups so that they are in control when things change. And I'm under the understanding that these nations are just a lower rung on the ladder, and you have the bankers above them, and then wealthy families and people we don't even see or know or ever going to hear about in our lifetime. That's the crazy thing. You think you know something about Davos or Bilderberg? That's just what you're allowed to see. That's one of the bottom rungs. There's something above that. And I go woo woo. I'm not even saying it's human, because I'm not convinced that it's human. It could be something other. It could be like what they're talking about in these old transhuman books, that they would create their own god to worship, which is basically this AI that they're handing control over everything. And the only way to play this game is not to play, just like that old movie, The War Games.
Yeah, and if you go to the Venetian nobility from ages past, say 1400s or so, that's where you start to get into some of these names that you never hear of. You rarely see Orsini's out in the public arena doing anything, or Sassoons or any, Vidal Sassoon family. Like, you just don't see them out in the general public, and they're just hidden way back in there. Like you say, these hidden hands that have had multi-century, like top of the pyramid wealth that you'll never know, barely scratch. The only reason they even know their names is because of, well, the tracing it back to the black nobility, Venetian nobility further back, and then without those records and at least the heraldry that allowed the connection to know who those families were based on, if you look at heraldry where the designs of the shields are, without that, these families would be completely invisible. The only reason you even know who they are is just because of the heraldry that was passed down as the family crest. Without that, there is no connection to these people. And invisible ghosts is what they are in the system. Like, I would encourage you to look at Venetian nobility in the 1400s, and these are truly the wealthiest families on the planet, and see how many of those names that you recognize on just a daily working basis. You're not going to find that. You're going to, I never heard of them before. Who's that? And that's exactly what they want. They don't want to be known. They want to be the invisible hand behind and let the people like the Rothschilds. Oh, Jekyll Island, our favorite.
Now, just think about that for just 1 second, though.
Is that that's got to be an older photo.
Yeah, it probably is. It's just the quickest thing I found on the internet there.
That's funny. Yeah, our old Federal Reserve was formed out there.
But think about this. Just, if you really want to know who's running stuff, name me one person that you know of that can name the members of the private Federal Reserve Bank, or for that fact, any of the central banks around the globe, whether it's in Russia or the UK or whatever. Do you know who they are? Because I don't. And I've looked.
Grok.
Who are the members? They're private. That's what it means. They're private. We don't know who they are, but yet they decide when the money gets printed, they decide when we're going to war, they decide all of that. And then there's still those people out there on the lower level that are blaming, oh, well, it's that nation over there and the people that live in that nation, and there's a source of all problems. They're a lower player too. Even when you get into the idea of these secret societies, like the Illuminati, they use that as a blanket term for everything. And that was just one group, one secret society that wasn't that secret. Or we wouldn't know that it was founded May 1st, 1776. It wasn't that secret. So that's a lower rung itself of some kind of bigger organization that does run things. And that's the funny part, is that everybody's still on this idea, these layers of ideas on who runs things. You might be a little smaller minded and really think about the local people that run your area, like the mayor and the police department, the city council, but they're just doing the behest of somebody above them. And then you get to the state level, the federal level, and then it just keeps going above that. According to the author Jim Mars, there's like 27 classification levels above the president. So that would mean that the president really is not even a big player in the affairs of the corporation of the United States, just to put that out there.
Order of the Golden Dawn. That's where they originate from. Do appreciate you listening tonight. We're coming to the end of the second hour here, and thank you for your time. So valuable tonight. We need to have conversations on where you think this world might flow to, but head on a swivel for the economy here, seriously, through the next couple of weeks. It just seems like everything's primed up for some sort of movement to the new system, or maybe lighting the fuse of getting that system fully integrated in the beginnings of it. If you like this type of content, please consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle, as we come to you every week here. And also civilizationcycle.com. Throw your email address in there, and we'll get you the newsletter on the show notes of the points we covered. I'll be putting that out tomorrow morning, and you'll be able to talk with people through the week with that, use it as notes or just bullet points for you yourself to do more research on, especially the global liquidity M2 cycle, the global liquidity, see where that moves and how that affects the price of everything else. If the money's not there, the global economy can't expand, but we can only expand through the issuance of debt. And that's already forecast, because countries tell you when they're going to expand the debt. They'll also tell you when they need to pay off those who already hold the notes. Like in America, we have to pay off $9 trillion in short-term debt that was issued when Janet Yellen was the head of the Fed. That all comes due right now this year from June all the way through, say, November. So here in America, we have to come up with trillions of new dollars, which is how they know the global economy is going to be swimming in cash, because we need to issue that much more debt. It's just mathematics. And once you add all the 200 countries up, you get a final number, and you'll see whether it's going to contract or expand. So I'll put those kind of things in the show notes. Again, Ransom, sign us out. Any last thoughts here? But again, thank you so much for your valuable time. World's just spinning. The world keeps spinning. I wonder if the Romans were thinking the same thing, or the Phoenicians were, or the Hittites, or the Sumerians, when they came to an end of an age, what they were thinking also.
Yeah, they just knew what their king told them to do. That's funny. No, I would
2 quarts of wheat for your tax.
I would just suggest people double down on creating their own resources, just in case. What if it's hunky dory and unicorns poop out, purple rainbow sherbet in the future, and everything's pixies? It could be.
Double-sized cone for me.
It could be. But I don't think it's going to be. So just in case, maybe start preparing a little extra resources in case you may have to bug out or bug in or eat the bugs or whatever you got to do to survive this ever-changing world.
Lots of caterpillars around right now. Enjoy your favorite flavor. Until next week.